Over on Capitol Hill, the race for a new Speaker of the House is on. A vote to decide who will fill the vacancy left by the ousted Kevin McCarthy is expected to take place early next week. Early this morning, former President Donald Trump endorsed Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan for Speaker, calling him a, quote, star. Jordan is chair of the Hard Right Freedom Caucus and voted to overturn the 2020 election. Joel Payne and Michael Ricci is joining us now. Joel is a CBS News political contributor, Democratic strategist and chief communications officer for Move On. Michael is a Republican strategist and previously served as a communications aide for House Speaker Paul Ryan and John Boehner. Michael, I'm going to start with you. You know, the thing about Jim Jordan is you might call him fiery, you might call him polarizing. He did have, you know, he was at times unclear about whether or not he felt that President Biden actually won the election, tweeting out, I think the day after the election, the Democrats were trying to steal the election after the election. Is this the guy, Jim Jordan? Is he the speaker that can unite the GOP and then work with Democrats?
Yeah, we're talking about somebody that John Boehner once called a legislative terrorist. And it's extraordinary to think that he's close to the precipice of being Speaker of the whole House. I think that no one I've talked to thinks that this will be resolved next week. So if anything, Trump's endorsement wasn't so much decisive as it was almost destructive, because it's just going to make it harder for anybody to get the magic number of 218 votes in this close majority. So Jim Jordan has come on here really strong. That's what happens in these situations. We put a lot of thought into. There's a lot of political drama going on. He's come out really strong, stronger than people expected, and Trump's endorsement certainly helps. But it doesn't. There are members for who it's a non-starter, members for who it keeps them from endorsing anybody because they don't know what to do. So I think, if anything, we're looking at a protracted crisis of leadership. And I would just say that may very well be the object of Trump's endorsement. You know, it's good for Trump. It just creates more chaos, more people looking to him for leadership. And so, if anything, I think it's good for Trump, that's for sure.
Well, Joel, as you know, Jim Jordan has proven in years past to be somebody who does not see the value in compromising with Democrats or over what he feels are his ideals or his point of view, which is this very sort of narrow group within the Republican Party. Some Freedom Caucus members, but others who are just still supporters of former President Trump. So what would Democrats then expect from a Speaker Jordan?
Well, Vlad, I'd also add that Jim Jordan also has some real kind of personal issues related to his time as a wrestling coach, you know, back about 20, 30 years ago, that also came to light a few years ago that I can guarantee you will be made an issue as he's considered for a speaker position. But, you know, when I think about this, I tend to agree with Michael. I think of this as another proxy war within the Republican establishment, the Republican Party. This is Trump versus anti-Trump. And I think, to Michael's point, I think, if anything, the Trump endorsement might complicate this. I think Jim Jordan might have been better off with some quiet support from Donald Trump and being able to go and get moderates and get particularly some of those Republicans in districts that President Biden won in 2020 who are representing them. There are 18 of them. Those folks are a critical block if you're talking about getting enough votes to win the speakership as a Republican House Speaker. And I think that the Trump endorsement complicates that a bit, but it also clarifies that proxy war, Trump versus anti-Trump.
Michael, you know, the kids would say the GOP party is just messy. It's not a good look, right, as they would say.
Sus.
But it's sus. Yeah, my 12-year-old says sus.
It's sus.
Right? But beyond that, I mean, it's super problematic. Barely anything has been getting done in Congress, but now nothing is getting done at a really crucial time. We're once again looking down the barrel of a possible government shutdown because Speaker McCarthy bought 45 days and that's it. You know, what is the messaging that's being sent out to voters about the state of the health of the Republican Party?
Well, we can't really have confidence to go to the country and say, trust us to lead, when we can't even trust each other to do it. It's a huge problem. And so much of it is personal. You know, Trump has created this instability where, you know, it's almost like professional wrestling where people can just change their spots back and forth. The good guy, bad guy, they're for McCarthy, they're against him. They're for Trump, they're against him. it's so jarring. And for voters who are just looking for stability, who are looking for just somebody who's focused on what their problems are, what they're dealing with, it all goes to the benefit of Democrats to try to expose those divisions and to expose that infighting. Now, granted, we went through this 8 years ago with a speaker fight when Speaker Boehner resigned, and a year later we won the presidential election, so things can change. But as you just mentioned, the big difference is, in that case, we kind of got past a lot of the big policy fights, like the funding fight that you just mentioned, whereas here, we have a reckoning on government funding, Ukraine funding, all kinds of issues. So the House has a long winter ahead of it.
Yeah, and one of the things, Michael, I'm curious your thoughts on are, I often feel as if the conversations that we're having are skirting around the issues that in years past would have mattered to voters, right? We haven't once talked about, because as Joel points out, this is a proxy over the people who are still supportive of former President Trump and those who are not, right? And so we haven't talked about the disparaging comments that former President Trump is alleged to have made that his former chief of staff, Marine General John Kelly, has confirmed. We haven't talked about the reporting in the New York Times and from ABC News that the former president divulged nuclear secrets. And these are things, if I could imagine, Michael, in 2010, if the Republicans knew that former President Barack Obama had spoken to a friend about the nation's nuclear secrets. I mean, that would drive the news cycle for, I don't know, 6 months. The news cycle was driven for 3 months over a tan suit, right? So imagine, and I think that we're sort of skirting, and Democrats are not out of the woods either, Joel, because President Biden is implementing this border wall. He campaigned against doing that, and people are saying, oh, I guess it's not racist if the president of the United States, who's a Democrat, decides to put this border wall into place, right? Because that was the narrative from some members of the Democratic Party. So I feel like we're constantly sort of skirting around these issues that have value to the American people, but we talk about other things. Michael, you first.
Yeah, I mean, the border is a great example. This should be, I mean, Republicans should be able to talk about this wall to wall all day, take a victory lap, show that the president had to come our way on this issue. And instead, we're just talking about who's endorsing who for Speaker of the House, something that probably really doesn't matter to the overwhelming majority of Americans. And on the economy, polls have shown Republicans leading far and away on that issue. And again, it's just not something where we're able to get any traction and put forward a positive message to voters. So all of it, it's an overused phrase right now, but all of it, and again, all of it takes oxygen out of the room. But again, that's Trump's whole goal here. He doesn't really care who it hurts as long as it helps him and makes people numb to all the things you're talking about, the comments about General Milley and the nuclear, what happened with the nuclear secret. So it really, again, it's, and I don't want to give him too much credit that he's sort of the mastermind of all this, but it's just amazing how it all goes back to him and being able to make it about himself.
Joel?
Yeah, immigration and border policy is an interesting issue to use as the backdrop for the point that you're making, Vlad. Look, governing's hard. And I'm sure Joe Biden has dealt with a lot of kind of both internal to his White House and also internal to his core, real dialogue about what's the right thing to do. What's the best thing to do for the American people? What is the best thing to do in terms of policy? It's hard. And I can tell you a lot of Democrats don't think that he landed on the right answer, but that's governing. And governing is something that it seems like the modern Republican Party just is allergic to. They don't want to do. You get rewarded if you're Matt Gaetz and if you're a chaos agent. That's the reward. The reward is not making a somber decision that's going to upset people in your caucus, in your coalition, and on the other side. That's not popular and that's not incentivized. And your point about immigration is a good one. And as I said, trust me, there are a lot of folks on the Democratic side who are very disappointed with President Biden's decision. There are also a lot of folks who understand that there is no good solution on immigration. And so I think some people might give him the benefit of the doubt, but governing's hard.
Yeah, no, you make a good point, Joel, specifically as it relates to the incentivizing angle of why people have cameras trailing them when, in fact, they haven't passed one single legislative accomplishment that they can point to. But they do love the camera. Joel, Michael, thank you both very much for an illuminating discussion as always. We appreciate it.
Thank you.